honestly, being fully transparent, the reason that I wanted to get involved with victim services was because so much of my career path has been out front, because you're out there communicating, you're out there giving presentations, you're out there talking to the media, all of those kind of things. And I wanted to do something that's in the background and helping the community and not out front. And that's just to help people. And you're not in the news because of the call you just went on. You're not giving a statement or writing a media release or anything like that. You're just helping your community. And I think that's why the majority of, we've been going for 25 years now.
Lynn Thomas, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. Nice to be able to have a chat with you. It's been a long time.
I know. We've actually known each other for a while now. When we first met through BNI, right?
Yeah.
And I think you were in the, was it the Lighthouse that you were a part of?
Pre-COVID days.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think I joined BNI actually during COVID, or like just at the start of COVID or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. I think you joined after me, but it was nice to be able to have that network within the community, and so it was great to meet you there and following along with you since then.
Yeah, exactly. So I've known you kind of through Zoom more than I've known you through anything else. But why don't you tell people a little bit about you and what you're here for, I guess?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I am a professional fundraiser, and so I've been in fundraising for about a decade or so. Before that, I was executive director of a chamber of commerce, and my background is actually in recreation and recreation leadership management, and specializing in tourism and special events planning, outdoor recreation, and also programming for special populations. So that also included psychology and sociology and kind of the study of human nature and how we react to things in life. And I've always been a very people-oriented person. And so any of my career path has always led me to very people-centric type of roles, where I'm out in the community and working with people. And that's really where I get my energy from, is being part of the community. And so I not only kind of have forged my career in that kind of a setting where I'm working with the community, working with businesses, working with nonprofit organizations, but I also volunteer as well. And that's kind of where I get a lot of energy too. I love to be able to give back to my community wherever we live. And so I am involved in other things as well as where I work. And I think it's kind of essential to be able to get to know people in your community and to also give back wherever you can. Maybe you're involved in a service group or that kind of thing, which is great. But I've always been involved in kind of either business or social settings, social work settings. So have worked locally here in Orillia for, like you said, the Lighthouse, which is a emergency shelter and supportive housing, and was the campaign manager for our capital campaign to build a new facility here in Orillia, and worked with an amazing group of people. I worked there for about 5 years. We got the buildings built and everything up and operational and open, and at the same time that I was wearing that hat, I was also still raising funds for the organization that was still operating and supporting people that were experiencing homelessness and people that had food insecurity and that kind of thing in the community that needed resources. So there was kind of two sides to that role. And I also worked for Mariposa House Hospice here in the area, which is in Severn, actually. And that was an inaugural fundraising role as well in development. And so kind of got them set up with a foundation of things internally. They had an excellent external fundraising event team that still operates, but they needed more help internally. And then I've been volunteering, and one of my volunteer hat roles has been with Victim Services for almost 3 years now. And because of the increase of our calls and the need and the response that we've been going out on to victims of crisis and trauma and all different kinds of victims, and I can tell you a little bit more about that, but our ED reached out to everybody that's a volunteer and said, if you have any ideas that you want to float for fundraising, and just come to us, the staff, because the staff are too busy, and they're also not trained, and any of them have a background training in fundraising. So I basically sent her an email saying, would you like me to look into writing a Ontario Trillium Foundation grant for you? And so she said, you would do that? And I said, yeah, as a volunteer, I'll do that for you and see if we get the funding. And so anyway, we met and discussed basically what I really thought that they needed in order to build some sustainability, and wrote that grant, and they received the funding, which is just over $100,000 for 2 years. And after that, they went through a process to hire me for the role. There was a bit of a process with the board, obviously, and to make sure that they were doing, the right thing and getting the right person. And so I'm now in that role. And this is kind of my third role within the community in fundraising and in a social service setting, because we've only been up in Orillia area for 10 years. So,
where are you originally from then?
Yeah, so I grew up in Hamilton girl, born and raised. Grew up East Hamilton Mountain, and went to Mohawk College. And we lived in Niagara for quite a few years, Niagara region, my family and I. And we moved up to Orillia originally because of my husband's job. He's a fire chief. So we moved up here because of that. And all of us have kind of found our own paths since then. And it's been a great experience. We love the Lake Country region, and lots of community engagement up here. And I just, I don't know, I've kind of come to call Orillia especially since COVID days. I affectionately call it the Casserole community. And the reason I call it that is not necessarily because people like to make casseroles, but it was kind of the analogy in my mind that I was thinking about. What is it about this community that they just step up? Like, everybody's like, if there's a need, they're there. And there's so many social service organizations within the Orillia area. And that doesn't mean just Orillia, like Severn, Ramera, or Medante and Rama. And during COVID, for example, we had a COVID kind of call out to the community. We needed a lot of funds to be able to provide for the organization I was working for, because we went from housing and supporting 14 men, and it almost instantly went up to 40 men and women. And we put them up in a hotel, and there were resources and that kind of thing from the government. But as soon as we sent out a call, we need help. We need meals. We need funds to be able to give these people resources and to be able to shelter people safely in place during the pandemic. And the funds just came in like a GoFundMe. It went through the roof. And just the response from the community was incredible. And I've seen that across the board in all the organizations that I've been involved in. They're quick to respond. So that's why I call them a casserole community. If you have a tragedy or, someone in your family's sick or, passes away, they're the first person on the doorstep, right, with a casserole to cheer you up or to give you something to help you through that phase. And the casserole, in my case, is usually funds. So.
Absolutely. I totally feel the same in that sense. Like I get the analogy now. It's something that I have felt, maybe not necessarily through the same channels as you have, but just because I come from more marketing side, I've seen it more in the business side as well, not just through the pandemic, but whenever somebody needs help or whenever somebody is, struggling and stuff like that, people here like to help out, right? And it's really incredible to see that passion. There's so many organizations, like you said, that are trying to help other people. There are so many businesses that are trying to stay afloat, that are trying to, and the community is very local centric. Like, we want to support local. We want the community to thrive. We want the community to, stay and thrive and grow and stuff like that. So what is it that needs to happen? Then people, tend to help right around that.
Yeah, no, it's there's a real generated energy around that. And, like I said, I also kind of have background in business and with my background in Niagara with the Chamber of Commerce back there, I was an executive director and involved with the Hamilton and Niagara chambers and lots of great communities there too. Wonderful, very, very supportive communities. But when I came up here, and I've also been involved with community futures organizations, CFDCs across Ontario, and I'm now the board chair of our CDC here in Orillia. And I've seen the same thing on the business side of things. The businesses in the Orillia area are the same. And whether it's tight for them or times are tough, they still will be there to support you. They'll be there. Yeah, for sure. Put that sign on my lawn. We can't sponsor right now, but we'll definitely get the word out. We'll put it on our website. The businesses step up however they can. And obviously some have more money than others, but it like I said, it doesn't seem to matter what business you ask in the Orillia area. If they can support what you're doing, they're the same. It's the same kind of mindset. And I don't know. I think it's one of those things that if we could package it and market it in your realm of expertise
and put it somewhere else in different areas, it'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah. If you could have some kind of a TED talk about the Orillia casserole mentality. I think that would probably be, it might catch a fire in other communities.
Yeah, that's wonderful. We should figure out a way to do that presentation. The casserole, Orillia casserole mentality or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody's going to come with their fork thinking they're going to get fed, and it's actually really just inspiration. There's more than one way of being fed.
So tell me a little bit more about, just going back to sort of what you were saying, because I'm very interested in the idea of being a professional fundraiser. I don't know that many people that are that, or that, I guess I've never actually noticed, because there are a lot of nonprofits, there's a lot of organizations that require fundraising, that require somebody to organize all of those events and all of those things. And what does that entail for somebody that is a very people oriented, that really enjoys helping out the community and stuff like that? What is a professional fundraiser?
Well, there's many different aspects to fundraising, and it depends on the size of the organization that you work for. I tend to work for smaller um, organizations, not like the big hospital kind of organizations that need an entire staff and team of fundraising. They'll have everybody from major gifts to philanthropy officers to events planners to marketing personnel, all within their fundraising department or development department. But I tend to work for smaller organizations, and really, like I said, it's not. It's been kind of part of my background for a long time to support nonprofit or charities. But the whole fundraising piece, it's been something I've learned as I've gone along and become a member of the Association of Fundraising Professionals, which I'm also a board member with the Central Ontario chapter. It's something you have to be passionate about. It's not for the faint of heart. And you have to be ready to accept a no. I always say that to whoever I'm talking to. It's okay for people to say no, and I'm okay to hear a no. You can't push until you get a yes. If someone says no, you come back maybe another time, right? But being a fundraising professional is there's many facets to it, and a big part of it is communication, and a big part of it is also marketing. And marketing is a real passion of mine as well. I almost went to university for that and then didn't. And so it's been part of my career path all along anyways, marketing and communications. So, it goes hand in hand. You have to have good communication and good marketing around the charity that you represent in order for people to understand your case for support. And, why do I need to step up and support and to give my donation dollars to you? And so it's, like you said, in our community, there's a lot of charities. And there's a lot of social service agencies. And for a city like Orillia, we're about 34,000 or so now. But the whole catchment area, the Couchiching area, is about 118, 120,000 now.
No.
So when you're talking about that many possible potential donors, and then all of the other agencies that are out there vying for their attention and their support, all very important and good causes, because when you work for a nonprofit or a charity, you're diverting services away from agencies or businesses or parts of the infrastructure of a township or a city that costs you in tax dollars. So people need to see the huge valuable importance of somewhere like Victim Services that are actually, we're not out there charging funds to the community or to the city of Orillia or to the township of Severn or Ramera, whatever the case may be. We're out there giving our services for free. And so when you as a fundraiser are out there talking to the community to say, this is great that we have police services, social services, fire services, paramedic services, but how are they all funded? We go out and we support those services at no cost to the community members that that is your neighbor, that might be your friend, it might be you. And we're fully trained. And so these are the kind of things that you're out there talking to the community as a fundraiser to help them understand, if you give a little bit, it gives a lot of an impact to the community. And so that's kind of probably in a really quick nutshell what it is to be a fundraiser. It's helping people to understand clearly the service that you're going to get to the community through supporting.
Yeah.
And giving not only dollars, right? Like all charities exist with a volunteer force. And that's the same with victim services. And, myself included, I started out as a volunteer, and I still am a volunteer. I volunteer as a crisis responder, but I'm employed as the development director. So there's many ways for the community that can support, get out there and get involved. And that's what you're doing as a fundraiser, as a development person. You're out there, you're rallying support, you're rallying, you're getting out there communications, you're trying to get volunteers, because that also, on the other end of things, saves the charity or the not-for-profit funds, because they don't have to hire more people. They're using volunteers. So it's on both ends of the scale. What a professional fundraiser does.
Yeah, that's actually a very interesting way of thinking about it, because you're right. Like, as a fundraiser, is not just about raising funds, but it's also about how do you make sure that the funds that you are utilize or that you can acquire, that you have, are used effectively, right? So that it's, if you can get volunteers or you can get people to rally to be part of something as well, it makes it so that the funds that you do have can be routed into what makes the most impact, right? That's very interesting. I didn't think about it that way, but yeah. Impact is a good way of putting it. Like what impacts us personally too by getting involved, but what impacts the community as a whole. Yeah. So there's many facets to being a fundraising professional. Like I said, it's definitely not for the faint of heart. It's a difficult go. A lot of times when you're in development, you're that part and that faction of the charity or the not-for-profit that is kind of out there doing your thing, while the staff are looking after the clients or the people that you serve. So you have to be, you do have to be a self-starter. You have to be a goal setter, and you have to be not afraid to be out there and approach people, but also to you're going to get yeses, but probably for 10 asks, you'll get one yes. So it's a living. Absolutely.
But it's a very rewarding it's a very rewarding living, because you're doing something that's bigger than yourself.
Yeah, I get that.
Selling widgets is great, and important too. That's an important part of our economy. But when you're out there selling, this is what we're selling to people right now. As victim services, we're selling, the future. We're selling healing. We're selling hope. We're selling, community awareness. We're selling community gathering and togetherness in order to protect people that could become victims who have become a victim of crime or trauma or crisis. And everybody knows that being a victim, it could be you at any day. You could be the one in that major car accident. You could be the one that your house burns down, or your garage burns, and that where you had your small business running out of, or you experienced intimate partner violence, any number of things, sudden death. We've had a lot of sudden death calls this year. So just helping people to understand why it's important, why you exist, and what you do for the community. That's what a fundraiser does. It helps you to get your head around that, and to be, I hadn't heard about that. I didn't know about you. I think that's a great reason to support something.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the reason why we're here as well. So, which is the North Simcoe Victim Services, right? Is that the right? I call it NSVS because it's the short form.
That's right.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, North Simcoe Victim Services. So what is that organization? You kind of talked a little bit about it just now, but what is that organization? What does it help with? What does it do?
Yeah, so North Simcoe Victim Services, formerly known as Vickers, victim crisis response assistance program, I think is what it was before. But so a lot of people in the community still talk about us as vicars. We're one and the same. We're North Simcoe Victim Services, and we are a VCAO program. There's about 50 agencies across Ontario that work with the police and emergency services. And that just means that we're a victim crisis assistance of Ontario. And we're all trained very similarly by our training personally here in the Orillia area. It was I want to say 8 or 10 week. That was like 3 years ago now. 8 or 10 week program when I did it. And it was 2 full nights a week. And we had trainers from all different facets of what we do. So that could be lawyers. We had the emergency services involved. We had drug response unit experts from the OPP, suicide communications, all of those different kinds of training that we would need when we go out on calls. And basically what happens is the OPP or the fire departments are out on a call. They have a person with them that is in duress and or misplaced from their home, from a fire or a flood or something like that, or they have somebody that is fleeing intimate partner violence or human trafficking that they have found in a local housing or hotel. And we are called in to come in to consult with them, to give them resources, support in that moment. And then we partner with a lot of different social service agencies within the community that can give therapy, counseling, different resources for whether it be for housing, employment. What we can give out personally, we can do emergency accommodation. So we use that a lot for people that are fleeing from an intimate partner violence situation, which used to be called domestic violence. So somebody, and it's male and female. I've responded to both of those calls. It's not maybe quite as known because I think men are often more guarded about talking about their partner abusing them. But we have male and female calls, those kind of situations. And we will put them up in emergency accommodation and for a few days. And then we are trying to get them to a little bit more stable situation with a trusted family or friend until they can get their own housing where they can be safe. And if they're the ones staying in the home and the police have removed the partner, then we will also ensure that they feel safe in their surroundings. So we can provide personal security devices for the home or for them on their person. We can also provide cell phones, which we do. We give out a lot of cell phones. That's a lot of cost as well. And we can provide some temporary meals, victim survivor kits as well, especially for people that have been trafficked and we're putting up in emergency housing. They oftentimes leave without anything from the situation that they've fled. And so we have kits that have things like pajamas and hygiene items and stuff like that. And maybe a couple of Tim's cards to get them through for a few days until we can get them to a more stable situation. So those are the kind of supports that we will give tangibly. But then it's also that in the moment, right? When you've been traumatized, your brain's been traumatized, that you need somebody calming who's trained to hear all kinds of things, right? I've been on calls this year to parents that their grief is so raw because they've just found out that their child has suddenly died. that you have to be there in that moment, and you have to be able to handle the what's in front of you, right? And the rawness of that human response to that trauma. And that's where we're trained to be able to be there for them and to be able to walk them through. Yeah, so it's a whole variety of different calls that we go out on. And as I said, there's no charge at all for our services, but it basically frees up the emergency services to do their job, the police, fire, and ambulance, to be able to do what they do best and what they're trained to do. And then they can hand off that support part to us and our trained teams that go out. And we always go out in two. We never go out alone. And like I said, there's such a huge variety of calls and things that you have read and seen in the news. We often are there. It's just that we're not out there, shouting it from the rooftops that Victim Services was there. Sometimes it's mentioned in the local news, but most of the time, because of the confidentiality to do with the people that we're serving, it's really not broadcasted that Victim Services is looking after this person or that person or this group or that family. However, there is one locally that people may have heard of that happened earlier this year. That's a kind of one of those, for instance, examples that I tend to use from this year anyways. There was an apartment fire in Orillia, and there was quite a few people displaced because of that fire. And I believe we put 13 people from that apartment fire up for a week. And it's not strictly the funds that come from us. There are some programs that we can tap into for funding. But our responders were the ones that responded the night of the fire and then followed up as well with the victims from that fire and gave them resources and helped with that emergency accommodation. So these are some of the things that you'll hear of in the news. And then maybe people will start thinking, oh, I bet that's one of those calls that Victim Services have been to because there was, victims of these tragic circumstances.
Yeah, for sure. It's, now that you've explained it, I kind of get it more. And I think I've been lucky enough to not had to call 911 or, emergency services in that regard. So it's something that has never crossed my mind up until now, but I never really realized or never really kind of imagined the fact that, whenever a tragedy happens, you have the OPP, you have fire, you have, these emergency services. But what happens after the tragedy or the accident or something like that? It's something that a lot of people don't talk about, or it doesn't get noticed. Like I forget, but they would need support after. And I think that's what you're saying is that, North Simcoe Victim Services, you guys are the aftermath. Like, you guys are there to take or to figure out or to take care, to help just even temporarily what happens after, the accident or something like that happens, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And we always, like on a call, we always ask, would you like a follow-up call? Can we call you tomorrow? Can we just check in with you this week? Because you seem like you'd need a little bit more support. And oftentimes they will say, yes, I would appreciate a call. And then sometimes we'll get people who will say, no, we'll call you, because we always give them our card that has all of our information. We give them, brochures and pamphlets from some of the local agencies, but also that has all of our services on it. And so that's one of the many things that our staff does is they will follow up with those calls after we hand in our written reports. So we do a debrief. It would be myself and a partner. After our call, we'll do a debrief, write a full report, and then that gets handed in to the staff at the office. And so it's all recorded, and they will follow up with the victim or victims that week. And sometimes we get called back again to go back because they want to talk through it some more. They've had more time to digest what their brain was traumatized in. So we go back out and talk to them some more, support them some more, suggest ways that, for them to walk through this time of trial. And it can be very heavy at times. There's been calls, and I'm being fully transparent, that I've gone home and cried, because you have to, kind of keep it together in the time. But then when you realize and fully, it all sinks in what somebody just went through. Yeah, it does affect you. And then that's when we can talk together as a team, we could talk as staff, with the staff, or any of our board members as well, and walk through what we've experienced. So it's, you'll hear of emergency responders going through some of those traumatic things, some people experiencing PTSD. That's kind of the serious end of things, but there's always a little bit of, you're only human. And if you sign up to be a victim crisis responder, you've got to have a certain amount of empathy in your toolkit. And you need to be an empathetic person.
Yeah. And you said this is run by volunteers, right?
This is, so the program where we go out and respond is mostly volunteers that goes out, unless there's a volunteer maybe that called in sick or something, and then the staff will help respond to a call too, but that's not as common. The staff are often the team lead, so they're the ones that you check in with when you get to the call. They're the one, as soon as you leave the house or the scene, then you call your team leader, and the staff are often that role. And we also respond to the hospital as well. If somebody has to go to, identify a loved one, we will go, and we'll go alongside with them. We'll even go in to identify a body with them. We will go to support them and to kind of walk through what they're going to see, what they're going to go through before they go in to see that loved one. We'll respond to the sexual assault unit at OSMH as well, to walk through the trauma that somebody has been through if they've been sexually assaulted. And there's all kinds of different types of calls. Like I said, there's even fraud that we'll respond to, that a lot of seniors are seeing that kind of trauma as well.
I have a question, and I don't know, I don't know how you would answer it, but it popped in my mind because I was thinking about this as you were talking, and it's like, well, there's all sorts of, like you said, you need a certain amount of empathy in order to be able to volunteer as a crisis responder, right? And what do you get out of being a volunteer? Because it sounds like it's a very heavy, very intense, you're going there to volunteer. And it's when I think of volunteering, you're going out and you're at an event, or you are, helping out, handing pamphlets out or stuff like that. It's something nice that you're doing or something like it. But this sounds very heavy. Like there's a lot of emotional burden. There's a lot of like you're in it fully with these victims and stuff like that. So what do you get out of being a volunteer for a crisis responder for people that may or may not be interested in it?
Well, yeah, I guess you kind of have to be a certain mindset in order to get involved with this kind of volunteering. There are a lot of my friends that go, I don't know how you do that. But like I said, I think part of it goes back to my education too, and sociology and psychology have always been a real interest of mine, and just knowing and understanding how people think and how the brain responds to certain situations. But I think it's also any of my volunteer colleagues, they all have the same kind of, maybe mindset's not the right thing to say, but the same kind of gifting is that they just simply are supportive people. They want to be there for people that are hurting. And like you say, it takes a special kind of person to do that. And it doesn't matter how you volunteer in your community, it makes an impact.
Yeah.
This one it's not one of those, I think that honestly, being fully transparent, the reason that I wanted to get involved with victim services was because so much of my career path has been out front. Because you're out there communicating, you're out there giving presentations, you're out there talking to the media, all of those kind of things. And I wanted to do something that's in the background and helping the community and not out front. And that's just to help people. And you're not in the news because of the call you just went on. You're not giving a statement or writing a media release or anything like that. You're just helping your community. And I think that's why the majority of, we've been going for 25 years now. Wow. So 25 years of serving the Orillia area. There's been a lot of volunteers over the years that have done incredible things. And I know that we would have a lot of victims if we were to kind of survey the community who would like to step up and tell their stories. And we do actually in our training, we have former victims that were served by Victim Services, North Simcoe Victim Services, and they talk about the ways that they were helped through that tragic circumstance. And it motivates you too, as a responder, to see, what, this does make a difference.
Yeah.
If somebody's worst day, if I could be there to make any kind of a difference so that they don't go forward and feel completely annihilated emotionally and mentally from this, that's a great reward. You don't need anything else other than that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Absolutely. I totally get that. And it must be, especially because victim services is not necessarily on the news or being part of that whole thing. It must be hard to, I'm assuming, not that I know, but it must be hard to raise funds or to figure out, because I don't know how many people that have not been through trauma would know about this organization, right? And what you guys do.
Yeah, it's true. It is a little trickier than some of the other roles that I've been given or not given, but that I've been hired for, because it's not quite as public. When you think of some of the other causes within our region, and you could probably name 10 right off the bat that you see all the time out there in the news. Probably the hospitals being one of the number one, right? Yeah, You're always seeing that because everybody's going to use the hospital at some point. So everybody knows that is an important need. And they're always out there and they have to be. Unfortunately, that's just the system that we have. Yeah, this kind of a thing, because of the confidentiality to do with the people that we serve, it's not so much out there talking about the calls that we've been on, but it's also one of those services that anybody in the community could need at any moment. There are some of the other organizations that you most likely won't ever have to use their services. Victim Services, at some point, you probably will have known somebody that's been through a fire or an accident or an assault. Some of the calls that we've heard are random assaults, but a lot of them are intimate partner violence, and that has been a huge increase, especially since the pandemic. The mental health crisis has fed into that. And but that's not something people want to talk about openly. They don't want to talk about it at work.
Yeah.
They don't want to talk about it in their, when they talk to their neighbor. How's things going today? Well, I was at my kid's softball game last night. That's one of the things they're going to want to talk about. They're not going to talk about what's going on under the roof of their house. So yeah, it can be a challenge, but that's part of the reason that the organization hired me to kind of get out there because our calls have increased. The last stat we had anyway from a couple months ago was 127% since 2020
Wow.
that our calls have gone up.
That's a lot.
There's a huge increase for the need for responders to come and to help and to give those resources and supports. And if we're going to kind of continue to keep up with those, giving those resources out, especially when it comes to giving those tangible things like emergency accommodation, security devices, cell phones, victims kits, those kind of things, those cost money. We need to be able to support our community that way. And like I said, we go that whole Couchiching area. We will respond if Ramera Fire calls us, if Rama Fire calls us. I was at a call in Rama a couple months ago, and they have a wonderful program through their police services there at Rama, and those responders were there. So it was a police officer and their mental health officer that was there at the call, but they wanted us to take the lead on that call. And so we worked with them, and that's what we do. We partner with those emergency services. And it was great to see that Chippewas of Rama First Nation have their own kind of segment to their police services there to deal with crisis calls. But when you're talking about Orillia in the area, like the OPP they're so busy doing all the other things that they need to do in policing that they're quite happy to have the partnership with Victim Services for us to be able to do that part, to take over when they call us.
Yeah, totally. And that's what I was going to ask as well before I forget, is when you talked about Orillia area for, the area that Victim Services is part of, is it just is it Orillia? I guess, is it also, because you said Ramera has their own section in that sense? What's the area that you guys cover?
But we still, actually, I even got called to go out to Kawartha Lakes, an hour from Orillia, because they didn't have any responders for their VCAO program out that way that day. So my partner and I went to a call out there. And that happens on occasion. We'll get called to a different area if they call our staff and say, we don't have any responders that can go. Do you have somebody available that could go? But yeah, we cover Orillia, Severn, Ramera, Oro-Medonte, Chippewas of Rama First Nation, and South Gravenhurst typically is the region that we will respond to.
Amazing. Yeah.
Anywhere in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess going back into what I was going to mention about fundraising and stuff like that for NSVS, what are upcoming projects or events that you have going on that are, to help to let people know about it?
Yeah. Well, we're kind of out there and full on right now. We're about 2.5 weeks away from our first major fundraiser. It's called Ride for Refuge, and this was, part of my fundraising plan for the organization was just to do some signature events every year that people in the community can kind of, attach themselves to. And if they feel passionate about victim services, they can come out and be part of this. And it's a family friendly event. So you can bring your kids and register your kids to come as well, ride their bicycles or walk or run if you want to. It's a 5K or 10K bicycle ride or a 2.5K or 5K walk. And it's all starting at Tudhope Park. That's where our start finishes. And it's on October 5th. And people can register to join and to join a team or to start a team at rideforrefuge.org. And then you look up the Orillia location, which is us. The good thing about this, it's a national event. So there's 38 locations across Canada that are doing Ride for Refuge on the same day. There's a couple that are doing it earlier, like a couple days earlier, or a week earlier. But it kind of gives you that spark to compete with other locations as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's kind of fun so that you see, all of the other locations, how they're doing and all their sponsors and all the teams that they have. And you're all out there on the same day walking or riding for people that need refuge. And some areas it's for actual like refugees. That's, still a term we use for people that have come from other countries that need refuge in our country. But in our area and for our organization, it's for people that are seeking refuge from human trafficking or intimate partner violence, which is two of the highest calls that we do. And so we're raising funds to be able to support them and give all those supports that I talked about earlier. So it's going to be a great event. Chick-fil-A is sponsoring a lunch complimentary to everybody that comes out, and there'll be marked trails and lots of people cheering along the way. There'll be a little bit of an opening ceremonies. The OPP commissioner is coming to kind of launch all the riders and walkers and give a few words. And we also have a victim that's going to share a brief testimonial at the opening ceremonies and what it meant to her in her time of crisis. Her story is quite interesting and very tragic, but she's going to be telling, how important it is to have these services. And then there's activities for the family too, as you're waiting, and swag bags. And then everybody that raises 150 or more will get a free t-shirt as well, a Ride for Refuge t-shirt. You can wear that with pride around the community to talk to other people about getting involved next year.
For sure.
But it should be fun, should be a good way to build a little bit more of exposure in the community. And you can follow our pages for updates on that on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn as well. And then we have a Christmas event that's going to happen on November 30th. We're calling it a Fashion Tista. And it's a fashion sale and tea.
Oh, that's cool.
So, yeah, so it's going to be, you get to kind of come and have some nice foods and a nice, beautiful atmosphere with some live music. And then there's going to be fashion for sale. So because it's the holidays and no matter what you celebrate at that time of year, most people are looking for gift ideas or come buy something for yourself. That'll be November 30th. And that information's on our website. And then the other thing that we have going right now is we're launching a monthly donorship program. So that's called SAVE is what I've titled it, is the acronym for it. And it stands for Support Advocate for Victim Empowerment. And you can go on our website and click on the donate page and become a monthly donor. And there's a little bit of information as well on our website about the SAVE program, what it kind of would cover. If you're a $10, a $20, $50, $100 a month donor, the kind of things that it would go towards, whether it's, a smaller donation to be able to help with the Tim Horton cards that we give out, or whether it's up to a larger donation that helps with emergency accommodations, extended emergency accommodations in particular. So, there's lots of ways to start to get involved, and we hope the community will step up and really start to support what we're doing so that we can do more good and help more people in the community that we're going to still go out there and support, but we might not be able to give them quite as much financial support as we'd like to, because we, like I say, we give everything at no cost to the victims and their families.
Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty amazing. And yeah.
If we're calling in some of the other supports in the community, that comes from our tax base, which is, part of why we pay taxes. It's good. But, it is great if there's agencies like ours that can provide some of those services that we don't have to, it's not a burden on our tax base either.
Yeah. So you kind of answered my question already that I was going to have, is like, for people interested in helping or joining, NSVS, how would they do that? But it sounds like, there's a lot of events, a lot of things going on. And if somebody wanted to volunteer or be part of the organization itself, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, there's definitely, there's a volunteer page on our website as well. And there's an application, and that will go to our volunteer coordinator, Sherry, and she will look that over. And then there's a new class actually starting this week, Thursday. So I think that it's kind of coming down to the crunch of when you can sign up, but you might be able to sign up still in the next few days. But if not, and you still want to look into it, you can be part of our next class, which will probably be in the winter or the spring, early spring. But you'll have to, what volunteers have to do is you have to commit to being at, I think it's like 90 or 95% of all of your training classes. And then you also have to have vulnerable sector check, and you have to commit to a year of volunteering. That's a commitment that we ask for because of the amount of time and resources that is put into the training. And your time commitment is 3 shifts a month. So we can sign up according to our own schedules. And those are 12-hour shifts. They go from either 7 in the morning to 7 p.m. or 7 p.m. till 7 a.m. So you do the daytime shift or the overnight shift, and you could get called at any time that shift. And sometimes you don't get a call. Sometimes it's quiet. And some of our staff don't like you saying the word quiet because they're like, don't say quiet. It's not going to be quiet. But it's, I've had 3 shifts lately, then I haven't had a call. But then you'll go through another spell where during your one shift, you've been out on a couple of calls. And then there's other times where, because there's several calls in one day, then they call in, people like to respond as an emergency because the team that's on the shift are already responding to a call, and then another call comes in. So, so anyway, the basics is 3 shifts a month for a full year at least. And after that year, the majority of people enjoy what they're doing so much they stay on. I don't know many that have quit myself since my class 3 years ago. Most of them come from some kind of a social service background, policing, emergency services. A lot of the volunteers come from kind of that background. Mm-hmm. But you don't have to be. You could just be passionate about supporting and looking after your fellow community members. Like if you've had some experience with bereavement, which I had bereavement training when I was at hospice as well, and mental health first aid training, any of those things kind of help you prepare for being a crisis responder. So just apply, and it's a very rewarding group to be a part of.
Yeah, for sure. It sounds like it. And when you are doing the calls or whatever, does it happen, I guess I was thinking, does it happen at a location, like you go to the OPP in that sense? Or is it, like a work from home type of scenario? How does that work?
Yeah, good question. During the day, most of the time, we meet at our office. The North Simcoe Victim Services office is at 1 University Avenue in Orillia, which is the OPP Orillia detachment. And our office is like you walk in the front door, and we're like the first door right on the left. You'll meet there with our staff, and they kind of give you a debrief, and then you and your partner meet there, and we usually head out in one of our cars. Then there's times where maybe the call's a little more remote, and then you'll contact your partner and say, where would you like to meet? Okay, let's meet at Zare's parking lot, and we'll leave one of our cars there, and we'll go from there to the call together. Sometimes we meet together at the call, but we always have to wait till both of us are there before we go in. And there's a lot of times you go right to the victim's home. whether it's a victim that's experienced sudden death in their family, intimate partner violence, any kind of those tragedies. They may still be at their home, and you go and you meet them there. And but we always go in together, and then we come out together. And so it depends on what the scenario is. I had an overnight call a little while ago where we met at the location, and then we went to debrief afterwards at a parking lot because it was overnight. Sometimes we'll go to a Tim Hortons or something to sit and to debrief and have a coffee while we're making our report out, and then we go and one of us will take it to the office afterwards. But yeah, so it's any number of those those kind of scenarios. It's not really set in stone.
That's great. And is there anything else that you'd like to mention that we haven't yet before we wrap up?
I guess that we hope that the community, might do a little bit more of their own research into what Victim Services does. And you can find a lot of our information right on our website, which is NSVS.com. And if you go on there, there's all kinds of information. It explains to you basically what our strategic priorities are. It explains to you what our resources are and what actually a VCAO program is in Ontario. And then that's where you can find out how to volunteer. And as well as volunteer as a crisis responder, you can contact me as well. If you want to be involved in the fundraising aspects of things in events. I have a fantastic team for the Ride for Refuge that's happening soon, and a small team for this other event that we're doing on November 30th, the Fashionista. But if you want to be involved in those kind of things as well, my email is Lynn, Lynn, at ns-vs.com. So you can just shoot me an email and say, hey, I'd like to be involved in some of those events to help you raise funds for and awareness for victim services. And so that's a great way too. And like you said, there's lots of ways that we try to get out in the community to do community events as well. So we do need volunteers, and we often use, reach out to our crisis volunteers to see if they would be the ones that stand at a table to be able to talk to people about what we do. But then there's other events where you might need somebody to, greet, to be a greeter, or to take the tickets, or those kind of things, hand out pamphlets or that kind of thing. So there are other ways you can get involved if you don't want to actually be the one that's out there on the calls. And then of course the way that's near and dear to my heart is you can become a donor.
Yeah.
And support. You know that your dollars are going to go directly back to helping the people that need it. We are funded partially through the Ministry of Community and Children's Social Services, which pays for our staffing. And so the additional and extra costs above and beyond, and especially as the calls continue to rise, is what we're fundraising for. And we need help with. And we do need more staff. So there's potential in the future that we would hopefully be able to expand our team as well as the calls arise. And the society has changed. Society is changing, the mental health crisis. But there's also was earlier this year, it was announced that we are in a domestic violence crisis. And so intimate partner violence. And it's not something to take lightly. And if we're in a crisis, we want to be there to be able to help the people that need it most. And so we need people's support, even if you can only give a little bit every month. It would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And people, like I said, just to reiterate, people can find out more about volunteering and donating and being part of, this through ns-vs.com. And you said you guys do have social media as well, right?
Yeah, we do. We have Instagram and Facebook, LinkedIn. We are occasionally on Twitter. That's one of the things that we need to kind of get better at, but X, I should say. But yeah, we're, and then we also have a newsletter, and you can kind of catch up on all of our news. That's also on the website. So those are posted right on the website. And actually our social media, we have a highlight of our social media at the bottom of the website. So you can click on those posts that have been going out in the more recent months. And other than that, just kind of keep an eye out for us. You're not going to see a bat signal out there, but but we're definitely out there. If you see people at a scene that have a lanyard around, that's often us that are out there helping and supporting the victims and supporting our emergency services too. It is a big support to the police officers and fire and emergency services that are on the scenes where they're supporting them as well.
Amazing. Yes. So multiple ways of connecting and being part of, North Simcoe Victim Services. And I hope people donate for that bat signal. I'd like to see that. That'd be cool. So yeah, Lynn, thank you very much for being on the episode. And yeah, hope you come back and see what's happened to North Simcoe Victim Services.
Yeah, I'd love to, and see if we can have more of those save victims, which is our symbol for that is a life ring. As you know, in marketing, you have to have something visual to kind of to grasp onto the concept of why am I supporting this? Well, you're throwing the life ring to the person who's potentially going down. You're going to pull them up. And so that's what that symbol stands for. It's a nice bright orange life ring in that SAVE program. And so hopefully we'll have lots of SAVE support advocates for victim empowerment in the future, monthly donors that would like to, be able to say to people, I'm a SAVE donor. What's that? And then they can tell them, right? And so as that program builds, hopefully we'll have some kind of symbol. It might not be in the sky, but it'll hopefully be spread around, maybe some window clings or things like that, bumper sticker, something with that orange ring on it, just to show that you're throwing a life ring to people that are needing it most.
For sure. So yeah, again, thank you very much. And we'll catch you on the next one, I guess.
Okay, sounds good.